this. He was a quite remarkable man. They picked him up for, they thought he was attempting to assassinate Marshal Tito. He went into Guatemala, he went into the impenetrable jungles of Guatemala, he and his wife, he said, and they emerged on the very day that the Bay of Pigs troops left Guatemala City. He arrived in Guatemala City. He worked for the Central Intelligence Agency. He was the baby.
He must have known E. Howard Hunt, certainly, in those days.
Well, I presume he probably did, but in any event, he was the babysitter for Lee Harvey Oswald for the CIA. And he was about to be called as a witness before the House Select Committee on Assassinations, and he died the day before he was supposed to call. I went down there for the coroner's inquest. It was quite interesting, because the district attorney, what happened was this. Marshall was staying at a home where his daughter lived. His daughter was staying with a very wealthy woman in Florida. And this woman, it's kind of like a Columbo movie, and this is before the days when people had videotape recorders. She went out, this woman, to play a bridge tournament. But she wanted to have a record made of some soap opera. So she said to her domestic worker, here's an audio tape recorder, just put it on and record the sound of this television soap opera. And so the tape recorder was playing, and then you hear the bullet, the shotgun explode, the shot that killed George DeMarshall. They claimed he committed suicide. But if you listen to the tape, you hear this. You hear a little noise, you hear silence, and then you hear beep, 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 a little more noise, and then you hear the shot. The beep, 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 beep was a security system on medium mode. One mode is if it's on fully armed, if anyone opens a door or window, a siren goes off and the police are notified. On another mode, it's off entirely. But on the medium mode, it goes beep, 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 beep to show that someone has opened the door and come into the house.
God.
Just before DeMarshall was shot, that's what happened. And I talked to the district attorney when I listened to that tape. I was down there just before the coroner's inquest, and I said, does that sound like someone came in the house? He said, we're not going to go into that. And I said, why? I said, you understand why this is bigger than all of us. We have to do what we have to do. I said, I don't understand that. And he said, well, listen, you can't speak at the coroner's inquest. You're just going to be a spectator. I said, I know that. And so he played the tape and told the coroner's jury, a cross-section of the folks in the area, that this was a suicide, etc. And this woman on the coroner's jury said, that beep, 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 that sounds like my security system. That means somebody apparently went into the house. He said, we're not going into that. And so they ruled that it was the suicide, and that was the end of that. But I think there's some very serious questions as to whether he was murdered.
It is now clear that in some instances the agency lied about the 201 file, about its contents, did not give the House Select Committee access to parts of the file that they knew existed and wanted to see.
The information it contains not only confirms the government's very early interest in Oswald's activities, but discloses a startling revelation. Oswald was directly involved in sensitive intelligence operations for the CIA and probably for the FBI as well.
Here we have the transcript of the January 21st, 1964 executive session of the Warren Commission. And in it, they're discussing the fact that they knew that Oswald had worked for the FBI. He'd been assigned a payroll number as 179, and he was been paid $200 per month from September of '62 until the time of the assassination.
We've seen revealed one conspiracy after another. Anybody would have to be a fool nowadays to dismiss conspiracies. And perhaps we lived in a fool's paradise before the Kennedy assassination.
Men who create power make an indispensable contribution to the nation's greatness. But the men who question power make a contribution just as indispensable, especially when that questioning is disinterested. For they determine whether we use power or power uses us.
Quoted before, and I quote again Mr. Jefferson, that if we expect a nation to be ignorant and free, we expect what never was and never will be.
The way they look determined and reverent at the same time, but still they're a bloody good bunch of killers.
When our intelligence forces brought in their reports warning that if the election called for by the Geneva Accords for July 1956 were held, Ho Chi Minh would be elected president in South Vietnam by at least 80% of the vote.
Had a hell of a time with Morse this morning. He insisted that our destroyers were there to back up. He said it on television last night. He said we were...
There is a predisposition still on the part of the mainstream media to believe it all works, the system works. And it's only the sort of crazies on the fringes who want to keep saying, no, it doesn't work. No, it doesn't work. There's a conspiracy at work. And the two are converging all the more because the evidence has brought them together.
I have a feeling, therefore, that this harassment attack and this attack with 20 or more torpedoes upon two of our destroyers was designed to force us out in a way lest we precipitate a greater struggle. I have a feeling that they've misread America once again.
City Councilman Tom Bradley said, "This indicates the dangerous degree of hysteria and hate which has consumed some elements of our nation." And another councilman, the city council was infected.
There's great danger in this country because of the fact that so much of our economy is geared in the military area. There is grave danger of a military industrial alliance of a kind actually affecting policy.
Mr. Nixon has participated in since you've been in the White House, and he, as Vice President, has been helping you.
I just wondered if you could give us an example of a major idea of his that you had adopted in that role as the decider and final.
If you give me a week, I might think of one.
When power leads man towards arrogance, poetry reminds him of his limitations. When power narrows the areas of man's concern, poetry reminds him of the richness and diversity of his existence. When power corrupts, poetry cleanses.
Communism is the scavenger of decaying civilizations. It makes its way into a country and into a culture only when that culture begins to rot from the inside. Measure of the incipient death in any civilization is the progress that communism makes. And just as soon as this culture begins to die, then this winged scavenger, with the mechanical wings of hammer and sickles, descend upon these decaying countries in order to devour them.